Hi everyone. Quick introduction to why we're here and what we do today. We have to quickly show the antitrust policy because there might be competitors here in the room. So please behave. Agenda, quick onboarding. If anyone new is here, give you a quick status update where we are right now with EVerest. Would love to give you also a quick deep dive in how the virtual charger park works, in particular how to configure EVerest, which is more like a generic skill set regardless of where you use that. And we would love to collect with you some requirements around how to build an EVerest tender template, or how to make, let's say, from a charger buyer perspective, good requirements on how to draft EVerest into that. And then also some questions about enrollment and how to continue this series. For the introduction, for those who don't know yet, EVerest is the open source project which takes care of the firmware within the charger, from OCPP uplink to the cloud, ISO 15118 or DIN spec communication to the vehicle, and soon also CharDemo and CharG, to hardware driver interaction, to local energy management interaction, to payment, to connecting to some human interfaces. All of that is done with EVerest. It's open source, used by dozens of vendors from multiple continents, actually. We have more than 100,000 chargers in the field. And yeah, this is all based on open source, so everyone can freely use it and works on top of Linux. Here are a couple of logos. So we work really with the entire supply chain, from silicon vendors to controller vendors, a lot of component makers, and also a lot of charger vendors, and that's getting more all the time in the background. Yeah, and as mentioned before, we have, roughly speaking, a couple of 500 contributors already to the code base. There's a couple of maintainers who take care that only good things come in. We have more than 80 organizations donated code already and collected quite some software values, while the amount of installed chargers is growing quite rapidly over the time. EVerest is structured in a way that there's different working groups for different technical aspects. We work under the umbrella of the Linux Foundation, in particular under the umbrella of the Linux Foundation Energy. And the meeting we're here today is the CPO Forum. So it's all about interacting with charge operators. And we're doing the CPO Forum now to also give the CPOs a voice in the project and to push things forward. We would love to work with you on making a better EVerest for you, so you have a happier life and using it at the end of the day in your chargers. And the benefits for you are then better products, influence on the roadmap, defining KPIs together with us, and collecting feedback from the vendors on those KPIs. And would be great if you quickly can write into the Excalibur drawer. I shared the link in the chat, and otherwise you can also click here on the QR code. Okay, key updates. We have a new version of EVerest released. We have new stable version of EVerest. So this was, I don't know, 9 months in the making. There's a lot of updates around ISO, around OCPP. The major change which is visible for the outside is this was all migrated to a monorepo. All the documentation got merged in with a lot of new documentation. So a really, really big restructuring. And I'm not sure if I think we have been really that 2 days ago. So I think by now we should be out, or if not, we should be out in 1 or 2 days. Main, let's say, short-term, let's say over the last 4 weeks, changes have been that OCP 1.6 and 2.x are now more easily coexisting on the same EVerest instance. So it's not such a hard break switching between them. And we work quite actively on OCP 2.1, so not 2.01, that's more or less done, but the 2.1, the very new version. And around the ISO side, I think on Dash 20, we're actually a lot done there, but we're really actively working on a car emulator, a better one, so you can better run tightly integrated EVerest simulations. So let's dive into the first actual topic, but I will hand this over to Martin.
Yes. So here we just want to briefly present EVerest on a more like under the hood method. So here we have EVerest's internal architecture as depicted with these small boxes. So EVerest is a microservice type architecture where modules have like their corresponding use cases. So as we can see here, basically OCPP is covered by like the OCPP2 module, EVSC manager, which manages the charging, by the EVC manager module, and then everything else has like its own appropriate module for each logical component. For example, like there's the 1518 module that handles all of the communication, the EVSC board support for interaction with the hardware, so on and so forth for every part. If you can go to the next slide. So here's a more global presentation of the architecture. So before it was like more of the internal stuff. So this is what you would see in the on the bottom part here with all of the modules. And here it's the same thing. So we have like the EVerest Framework Manager, which manages all the modules, keeps them alive and running. It defines the framework, how they're supposed to be run. They communicate via MQTT through this MQTT internal only API, and this is meant to stay internal between all of the modules. And now what's possible with the latest APIs is this custom applications that can run side by side to EVerest, which you can use to connect via MQTT as well, but through like a specifically well-defined async API. So this is to allow you to decouple the actual EVerest internals with your proprietary applications or custom codes or things like that that you might need. So if you go next. So how do you actually configure all of this? Well, as you can see, you can basically configure from the previous architecture documents that EVerest is very extensible. You can do it so that you have multiple EVSCs, one AC, one DC, two DC, however you want theoretically. And so you can really take EVerest and bring it from just like a simple AC charger to like a public high performance or like a large set DC park. And here we just have a small screenshot of the EVerest admin panel. And here what's important to note is that basically all these blue boxes represent the modules that we showed earlier. So like you have a OCPP module, an API module, or EVSE manager module. And these green lines is like the connections between the modules. So this is really important because it helps dictate the interactions and the flows between the modules, allows to have the proper APIs go from one module to the other, so that all of the connections and the use cases are properly covered and perform as expected. However, all of this relies on the backbone of a YAML configuration file that you can also see in the bottom right here, which has a very large set and is quite difficult to understand if you're quite new. And sometimes maybe for people just buying an EVerest-based charger, they might not know everything about the configuration. And so we have this EVerest admin panel for more graphical user interface. But really the idea here is that through this YAML file or the admin panel, we can configure an EVerest instance to be whatever we want. And this applies to the virtual charge parks because you will be uploading this configuration to the VCP. So if you go to the next slide. So this is a small screenshot, and then I'll enter the live demo. But basically, so if I start sharing the screen now, let's see. All right. So do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. So here I'm basically going to start from scratch and create a new charge park. So here we'll just call it OCPP 2.01 demo. And here, this is, I guess, the most complicated part of the VCP, which is actually creating the configuration. And here, I've already pre-done all of this. But as you can see, we have a YAML file for the configuration, and automatically the VCP will understand that it's an OCPP 201 configuration. And then I'm just going to upload all of the OCPP configuration for 2.01. Obviously, as you might know, the device model is quite large and so requires a lot of definitions. Once that's done, I can create the park. And now everything is loading up. And here we have a new version of the EVerest, a virtual charge park instance that has been that has booted. And as we can see, we have a boot notification response and all is well. And here we can come see our EVerest config. So as I said, this is quite large, quite detailed, and you might need some expert knowledge to be able to create this. But here we have a basic dual port charger with OCPP. And this is the configuration used. And here we can go ahead and modify the configuration as need be, and then we can restart the instance afterwards if needed. We can also do the same for the OCPP configuration. So for example, let's say we can go in the charging station or maybe in the internal. And then we can change the charge point ID, for example, change it to something else instead of CP01, and so forth and so forth. We also now have access to the certificates, so we can upload certificates to the VCP so that you can properly connect to your CSMS or upload certificates for ISO 50018 to do plug-in charge testing or TLS under the hood to see how everything reacts. So here we're connected to a CSMS, and we can still do all of the main use cases same as before. So we can still swipe an RFID, and then we should go to prepare charging. Let's choose the car simulation. Up. Prepare charging. There we go. Cable check. And then we're now charging. Okay. So that's for the quick introduction on the VCP. Same as before, you can scale your instances to have multiple instances and do as many chargers as you want. Furthermore, we've made this configuration more extensible by having these config placeholders. So now in your configuration, you can, for example, set a CSV filled with your charge point IDs. So if you have them already like whitelisted in your backend, you can just create 50 chargers, have this list here in the CSV, and it will automatically be populated in the instances accordingly. And you will have, for example, if you're doing CP01 until CP50, you can just create new lines here all the time, and then just write CP1, 2, 3, and then whitelist that in your CSMS backend, and then afterwards you'll be able to connect. And all of those instances will use the appropriate charge point ID.
Quick extension. I think meanwhile we are able to launch up to 10,000 chargers. So by default, the scale bar is a bit limited, but technically, if we enable you, you can also launch quite more than just 5.
Yeah. For basic testing, we've been using 5. And here I can still do the same actions as before, stop, scale it down, or delete. On that side, nothing has really changed. So yeah, and then I think we can go back to the presentation, unless anybody else has some quick questions on the VCP here now that I'm on the page.
The EVerest admin panel for doing configurations, configuration files. There's also a graphical version of that, as we showed in the screenshot. But if you need help, we're always happy to help. I can copy over the link from the slide. Yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, I would love to go to the back to the slide. So here we go. So the questions we would have is we also now unveiled them. Oh, sorry, before we go there, at the moment you saw that the configuration files are quite complex. So you can now just edit the config files however you want and upload them. Before we launch this virtual charger park publicly, there will also be, let's say, a set of let's say, pre-made configurations. And the question I would have to you is like, what pre-configurations would you actually wish for? If we have a drop down with 100, we have to maintain all of those. It's maybe a bit nasty. So give us an idea what we should target first. And we also wonder if we should have something like a wizard where you can define, let's say, number of ports, type of the ports, I don't know, AC, DC, charging speed, whatsoever, define the LCP version, what kind of port and communication capabilities do you want to have? Do you want to have plug and charge? Yes or no? So specifying all of that and getting your configuration automatically created for a virtual charger. And actually then for later, we also try to not integrate this wizard, but actually the full graphical editor in the virtual charger park, which already exists in EVerest. But also there, let us know what you think. Already opened that up in Excalibur. There will be a big deep dive webinar on the virtual charger park in a month from now. We will launch this publicly in 2 weeks and like 2 weeks before the webinar. And we're already accepting, let's say, beta users on that. So just let us know if you're interested. And as I said, please help us on the whiteboard to understand what kind of average configuration do you expect? Is the wizard style config editor helpful or not? And if you have any other question, also happy if you open up your mic and let us know. Now, this is basically also Excalibur sessions. So there's 2 more things where we would need your help and your input. One is around how to ask for EVerest. So we talked to a couple of CPOs and they mentioned us that sounds interesting. We also talked to some municipalities or cities, whatever geographical political regions who do tenders on EV charging, and they wonder if we have text blocks, text fragments, how to ask for EVerest. And if you have any experience on that, and by the way, why is this important at all? So we see there's a lot of different ways how you can use EVerest. So an EVerest charger is at the moment not exactly defined. You can use partly use of the code. You have seen that we also have some libraries within the EVerest project. Maybe people just use one library and then they claim it's an EVerest charger compared to someone who uses all the libraries, all the inner logic. There must be a difference. You can use the framework or not. You can maybe only use the framework, but a third-party LCP stack or third-party ISO stack. We have seen those examples in the field, not massively, but there are a few for historic reasons. And is this something we should specify on different, let's say, EVerest grades? Or you can also go for code modifications. You can go for outdated EVerest versions. You can use outdated APIs. You can use, let's say, bad choice of configuration parameters. And let's say there's a lot of things you could or could not call EVerest quality. And we just wonder about your opinions here again in the Excalibur. What would make sense from your perspective? And if you're interested to work with us further on this topic, please reach out. You will find me on LinkedIn, or we'll also share my email address later on here in the chat. We think there's a need for that, and would love to get all your input. Like, what would be your expectations? Sure, we can draft something on our own, but it should be along the lines of your needs. Let's move on to the next section. I think this is basically the second last. Around charger onboarding and enrollment. We have seen, so what is the current status on EVerest around onboarding and enrollment? So EVerest has tools like the virtual charger park or running your own Docker containers yourself or whatever to help you to try out EVerest. There's from different vendors, hardware samples out there. You can do compatibility testing. We help you with customizing the firmware. You have developer level configuration editors. All of that is available. EVerest has a lot of configuration capabilities to change also things in the field. But what EVerest is missing is any easy way for in-field change of configuration. So the moment it's up to the individual hardware vendors to build a user interface, to configure parameters, to build user interfaces for the end user, for the technician. There's no standard flow for commissioning chargers or enroll them. And we heard that this is an important field people stumble over, and we wonder if and how we should harmonize something there. So also here, going back to Excalibur, would be amazing if you can help us to get some feedback. And on what processes, what do you expect on qualifying new suppliers, like firmware customization, on testing, on backend integration, on car compatibility or continuous testing, and what things do you need for commissioning? Like how should be the factory pre-configuration? What tools and hardware and or software do you expect? Is there any preferred platform for do the commissioning? I don't know, a phone, a laptop, is it iOS, is it Android, is it something in a web browser? And how do you test after the installation? Like, do you just use, I don't know, standard off-the-shelf testers? If you've done something yourself, do you use a car, or what would be the perfect flow there? Please let us know, and I will again pause a bit here. Okay, then let's go back to the last section. You can continue putting things in. That will be open for a while. Just quick heads up, we're still planning for the next community meetup. There will be a small one next to the Power to Drive. We are inviting to a beer garden in Munich. I think it's on the Tuesday of the Power to Drive, something like 20th of June. We'll put the link into the meeting chat here in a minute. And the bigger event we're expecting is a big hackathon and conference in Karlsruhe the week after the ICNC. We have the first 3 speakers confirmed. We're looking for more. We kind of starting with inviting the really, really interesting ones. Would also love to see some CPOs on stage sharing their ideas, sharing their needs. So if you're interested in talking there, please let us know. Please reach out. So we're getting a stellar group of speakers. Speaking is free. Participating is basically, I don't know, $50 for food. So compared to other conferences, this is more or less very low budget in terms of do it yourself. We don't want to charge you for golden candeliers. This is all about having tech exchange. And yeah, last slide. Topics backlog for the next slots. So what we currently have as backlogs for a next charge point operator forum would be starting collecting KPIs, like how do we measure, how do we benchmark what is a good EVerest charger, or what is a good charger, and getting feedback from you there. It's a topic for next time. Another topic for next time would be I got from one of you here in the room an offer to make a case study on a mixture of charge point management system and virtual charger park, a demo. So we maybe can present that together with one of you. I think there was someone interested. And as I mentioned before, call for speakers for the event. But we're also super open to get other topics in here. So please let us know if you have other ideas, other wishes for the next meetings. Put it here in the chat or into the meeting minutes. The next Charge Point Operator Forum will be on 28th of April, so 5 weeks from now. You can sign up here, probably automatically signed up to the series, but otherwise, please check. Yeah, and would also love to open up the mic. If there's any other comments or question, please speak up, please let us know. So we will also start to uploading those CPO forums to YouTube and to the the Linux Foundation Energy infrastructure over the course of the next weeks. I think they created a landing page for this forum, and now it's up to us to populate that. And if you want to forward something in the meantime, just let me know. So if there's no further comments from you, thank you again for joining the meeting. Let us know if you need anything, and looking forward to talk to you next time. Have a great week. Bye-bye.